A multi-talented actor, award-winning writer, poet, and producer with a near-romantic style, today we have the pleasure of speaking with Laurence Fuller in view of his Valuart Solos here at the Valuart Gallery in Lugano Paradiso. But we're also going to talk about his most recent projects with Fake Rail Cross and Demo Tapers. But say no more, I'm going to leave the stage to Laurence Fuller to tell us all about it. All right, and we're live. Hey, Laurence, thanks for being here today with us in view of your upcoming Valuart Solos. How are things been lately?
Things have been good. I've been making a lot of art, writing a lot of poetry, and having fun in Web3.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, like before diving into your Valuart Solos, since I've seen you've been so busy lately, I'd love to ask you more about your most recent projects because you've had a ton lately. First of all, I'd love to know more about the piece that you had with Vincent D'Onofrio in with Fake Whale Cross recently, and then of course like your piece with Demo Tapers because that one's insane and it's still on sales, right?
Yes, the open edition that we did sold 245 copies, and people are buying it up on secondary. But there's still the one of one with Victoria, gorgeous piece. So I guess to start with the Fake Whale piece, which is, first of all, Fake Whale is such a gorgeous collection. Like so many of the artists that have dropped in the Fake Whale collection are just among my favorite artists in Web3. They clearly, everyone wants to deliver what is their best work at the time when they drop a Fake Whale. So the piece that I had at the time that I thought could go really nicely in that collection was a piece with Vincent that called Reflections of Us. And he had sent me that poem, his recording of that poem, soon after we did the first one, first collaboration together called Flood of the Soul. And it was, so I'd been thinking about that for months. And it was something that I had in the back of my, sort of up my sleeve. And I didn't really know what I was going to do with it or where I was going to drop it until Fake Whale had asked me to do something. And I thought, well, okay, it's a perfect time to do that. And also that, AI had advanced quite a lot since then in the last 6 months. So I was able to do a lot of different things that I wasn't able to do last year when it came to the animation in particular. And when it came to reproducing Vincent's likeness and my likeness. So it was sort of like a interior drama, quite sort of almost like a contemporary play or something like a play from the 50s or 60s, which is sort of for some reason that Vincent's poetry keeps bringing that up in me. It's very much like Look Back in Anger, sort of Broadway, New York theater. And I think it's because Vincent comes from the New York theater.
And you come from theater too as well, right? I mean, not from New York. Where did you do, where's your background in theater from?
Yes, from the British stage. I come from across the aisle in my training, and ethos. Came from the classics, Shakespeare and Restoration, and Fringe Theater and the West End, and but very different school of thought. So
you guys, that's amazing though, like how both of your schools of thoughts found this perfect, I would say, also the stream of consciousness that you have in this piece, right? It's all so it's perfect. I can't describe other words to describe it, but it's cool that you gave me also this perspective, because I had no idea also where Vincent, you know, his background in theater. So that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a wonderful character actor that just happens to be really famous. And, you know, he's all about the art and all about finding good writing and, yeah, the craft of acting. And I know that, like, when in between, when he's playing, like, you know, the latest villain in a Marvel movie or series or something, he's goes to acting studios and, like, works with the student and, like, helps them and workshops them and just discusses the craft. And I think now he helps out at the Strasbourg Institute, like, teaches young actors there and stuff like that. So he just loves the craft of acting.
Amazing.
So yeah, you know, guys like that, it's just a joy to work with, because he just cares about the art. You know, that's fun.
No, it's I really appreciate, like, I love the work and the synergy. You could really feel it. And speaking of which, you know, this, like you mentioned earlier, this this kind of internal, right, dialogue, sort of, you can also feel this in the piece with demo tapers, where there's Nemorino in this case that's, you know, struggling for his love, and he has all these thoughts to then find out that she most probably has been in love with him all time, right? So how has it been, you know, creating this piece for demo tapers, Una furtiva lagrima?
Una furtiva lagrima. I mean, gosh, when you guys first sent me the song, I mean, I just got chills, and I can't remember. I probably welled up, and I'm probably the 20th time I listened to that song in Vittorio's performance, I welled up, and you know, its power and impact didn't dull on me after every time I listened to it, because you know, it so encapsulates the search for beauty in sound and performance, and you know, this man's feeling of euphoria, and I mean, what a joy and what inspiration to go on, you know, and what sort of fuel for the creativity to just create. I mean, I ended up having way too much pieces that I'd created to fulfill, like, the 5 minutes that the song goes for. So that's how come we ended up with 2 different versions, because I just made so much. I was just, yes, you know, just listening to it, making more and more. Yeah.
Amazing. And, you know, also the fact of the utility tied to it, to the one piece in particular, having the opportunity, you know, also to live in first person live, Vittorio Grigolo, that's also, like, a very, I think it adds that uniqueness also to the piece, right? Have you ever I know that you've been in the NFT space for quite a while, and that you really care about this aspect as well, right? That in the live performance, that people can, like, really live it to the fullest. So would you have expected this, like, months ago, or is it, like, did it come to surprise, I would say, sort of?
Yeah, I would never have expected it. No, never. Never would I have expected in my life that I would be making opera fine art, and that it would be one of the first. I don't know if we figured out if it was the first yet or not, but that would be something I would be a part of. No, I never could have dreamt of that.
Luckily, and then it won't be the first, so it's the start, let's say, to even more coming along. In fact, we can't wait. Like, we have another demo taper is coming up, so hopefully, you know, we'll have the opportunity also to do other amazing pieces and opera fine art together. And speaking of which, speaking of art, like for your Valuart Solos, I know that you have 12 pieces. Can you give us insight on which pieces you chose and what's the story? Also, because you have really this amazing ability in storytelling. So what's the story that kind of connects all these pieces?
Yeah, well, the story that connects all these pieces, collaboration, first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take the opportunity to have, in essence, like a group show of my collaborations with different fine artists and visual artists, special effects artists, AI artists, and painters, to show, I guess, how poetry comes together with the visual arts.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really a tradition that I'm upholding in the contemporary world that goes back hundreds of years, but now is really given a lot of light underneath it. It's given like a lot of, it's empowered in a completely new way with the digital art space in Web3, working with artists from around the world to bring these pieces together, like little pieces of cinema, poetic, cinematic fine art. And I wanted to pull together essentially 12 of amongst my favorite collaborations that I've done over the last couple of years, and have sort of discovered along the way these brilliant artists that are out in Web3, and my collaborators who I've been working with around the world, sort of on a constant ongoing basis of, messaging each other, what are we going to work on next? Where are we going to go next? Are we going to the Middle Ages? Are we going to the Vikings? Are we going to some alternate universe where an adventure will unfold? And these are the end results of many of those messages and those creative sparks between myself and a visual artist and groups of artists coming together to make something that's really from the heart. So it's a great opportunity to show these pieces IRL. That's always something I think that we'll all just jump on, because so much of it happens in the metaverse. And so to have it showcase IRL in a beautiful gallery like Valuart, I know that everyone's really excited about.
And do you think that you might have the opportunity also to come here, visit, and live it live?
Yeah.
It's
in Italy, right?
It's in Switzerland, but it's just yes, but it's just a 1 hour train from Milano in Italy, actually. So we're in Lugano Paradiso, by the way. So it's really just like 1 hour train. So maybe if you come visit, you can merge going to see Vittorio Grigolo at La Scala in Milano, and then live Switzerland. We also have like the lake here, so it's really like a full experience. The arts, the nature, you have it all, really.
Well, that sounds amazing, and so I'll have to take you up on it. Yeah.
Tempting.
Yeah, very tempting. Yeah.
And speaking of which, what was, with your work that combines classics, modernity, old and new, how was your artistic journey? Like, what sparked the first time when you discovered NFTs?
Well, I think you hit on it there. I mean, bringing together the old and the new, and reimagining the classics has been a lifelong pursuit ever since I was in classical theatre. It was something that they really instilled in us, that it was our jobs to be the bastions of bringing back to life the classics into a contemporary audience, to people who are walking around, seeing the world in in 2023, and why is it relevant to them? Why is it relevant to us today? In February 2023, to be telling a story that was written hundreds of years ago, and to find those universal, eternal truths within storytelling is also something that's inherent in fine art and traditions in fine art and visual art and painting. And that was connection between poetry and visual art in that way has been a pursuit that I've had since I think about 6-7 years. And so before Web3, and it was a amount of like researching a screenplay about my father, who was an art critic and a repressed poet who wrote a ton of poetry that I found in his archive, and understanding where the poetic came from in him. And also part of my acting process was to write emotional journals about the character through the character's eyes, through what was going on in my internal states. And out of that started to come poetry, prose poetry, stream of consciousness, quite like Reflections of Hours, only that was written by Vincent. But my early poetry was much like that. And stories started to evolve out of it, and it was much of it was inspired by paintings and also my internal state. And then over time, that just started to get more of a structure, and that started to form into a way of working, a way of working with painters that I knew IRL. My first drops that I did in NFT in March 2021 on OpenSea were with artists that I knew from my real life that were friends of mine and in my family as well. And I created these animated paintings with my spoken word poetry to that painting, and started working my way through it from there. And and then it sort of just kept evolving from there.
Lovely. And also, like I love how you mentioned that your father was like a repressed poet, right? This word repressed. Did you sort of feel that maybe, not that you were repressed, but that maybe this medium gave you even more like liberty, the freedom, I would say? Did you find like the freedom to fully express yourself, that maybe you felt like you were still missing something to reach that? Or
I mean, yeah, firstly, I had no idea what
maybe
I was
you
going to do
found
with
a
my
need.
poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was making some sort of animated painting, spoken word poetry stuff, my Instagram, but I wasn't really taking it that seriously. It was in terms of like the production and everything. And I thought maybe when I'll be a famous actor, they'll be interested to publish a book of my poetry, like years down the line.
Yeah.
Never thought that it would become my sort of main practice and art form, and take over a huge part of my life. I mean, you mentioned my late father was repressed poet. He was an art critic because he didn't think he could make his way in the world as a poet. He just didn't. And actually, some of the final letters with his publisher, they would talk about publishing a book of his poetry, and he was talking about giving up art criticism. But that was shortly before he passed away, so it never actually happened. But he had books of poetry that he had written in his archive, and it was, and you can tell that it was like inherent in his writing. He would often quote poets, like he talked about the naked shingles of the world, which I think is a quote from Wordsworth. I'll have to look that up. But he would quote poets in his writing about art criticism, and he had this phrase and the way that he used language was very poetic. Like he had this this quote, "Great art makes great demands upon us," and so he would have these lines about art that he would repeat in debates and TV appearances that felt like he was reading poetry.
I love it. And also this last quote, right? How is this like, when do you feel this quote on a daily basis with all, you know, like you mentioned, you didn't expect to just, you were, you know, you expected to do poetry a little bit after doing acting, right? That it would come like along the way, you mentioned. And now you are doing so many creative endeavors. You're acting, you're writing, you're creative, you're active in the community. Like, how can you be so prolific between cinema, art, and community? Like, what is your how do you like I don't know how to put that in words.
Juggle?
Like, yeah, how do you juggle? Like, do you have like a specific time where you have this creative flow, or is it just something that you feel, you know, from this quote that you just mentioned, art demands, right? So you're there to sort of like serve art. You know what I mean? So is it like something, do you have like a specific time when your creative flow occurs, or is it just something that happens like along the way, that you're so present in the day that, because I think it takes a lot of presence, right?
It takes a lot of presence, and maybe just doing my best to keep up with everything, to be honest. Like
yeah,
it's there's never like oh, I've got nothing to do. Like it's never like that. It's always there's always something to do, which I actually quite love. I actually quite love always having, you know, some adventure to get into. You know, right before this, I was making some pieces, and I was buying some art, and you know, I would go between like putting a piece together, and then I would get distracted, like buying some art on object, and then suddenly my alarm went off, and I've got an interview with Valuart, and luckily I already put the collabs together, so I made it in time. And sort of my days kind of look a bit like that. Like I'll have alarms going off for things that I don't even know what they're for, and then suddenly realize, okay, 15 minutes, I've got to be here, do this. But it's fun. It's always fun.
Absolutely. And also, like, you know, you mentioned the distractions, but oftentimes, at least for me, I don't know for you, but like in my distractions, I find inspiration. Sometimes I'm thinking like way too much, and then I go like to the kitchen to get something, and then I have it, like it just clicks, and then I have my inspiration. So
yes, definitely. Actually, a lot of my best work, I think I get done where like I have this piece I know I need to do, and I'm maybe putting it off. But then what I'll do is like work on another piece, and then when I get completely stuck on that, and it's like too difficult, like it's like this piece over here seems easier. Oh, okay, now I can work on this. This is easier than that one, and so I kind of go back and forth, because it's like the more pieces you pile on, the more that actually this other piece you were supposed to do yesterday seems a lot more appealing. So I find that works too.
So definitely like the non-linear path sometimes is the best path.
I don't know any other path.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking of also another question I want to ask you is, you know, your work often incorporates abstract soundscapes. How is the process in creating these soundscapes, and what how do you think it like influences the overall experience, since this is the most important aspect for you, the overall experience of the work?
Yes, well put. Yeah, my pieces have to be taken in as a whole, really, which is an interesting dynamic as well for space. And I think people not always, especially at first, a lot of people didn't even realize that there was poetry to my pieces. Even my friends who I was close to and would collect my work didn't realize until like later on, at some point later on, that, oh wait, there's poetry to it if I turn the sound on. So, but basically, it actually comes at the end of the process. If I'm absolutely honest, like a lot, because the conceptual stuff sort of informs the visuals. So, you know, I have the writing first and then the visuals. And if I'm working with someone, they're sending it back based on the writing and the concept. And then the visuals inform the sound. And so it's really the last piece of the puzzle, the soundscape. And yeah.
And while you're working right with the visuals, I know you use AI primarily. So how does that process look like with the prompts? Because I know that you also journal a lot. So is it like you take inspiration from your journaling, and then how does it work with the prompt? I'm not really familiar. I mean, I've tested a little bit with Midjourney, but I'm not sure how it works, like prompt wise. Like, can you put in, do you have to go by words, or can you go a little bit deeper, like putting inside like full sentences of poetry? Like, how does that work? Asking from somebody who's not really experienced with AI, but I'm extremely curious to know more about that side of things.
What I've enjoyed most about AI has been an exploration of art history in a way that was like getting my hands dirty, you know, because art history can often seem like you're looking at everything behind a pane of glass, and AI kind of shatters that glass and allows you to sort of dig in with your hand and pick up the paint and you know, turn it into something else. So it's really sort of an evolution of aesthetics, and having a feeling for aesthetics and art history and different references and cinematic history, I think all comes into play. Is actually the most useful thing that you can have, is having like a good taste for aesthetics, and having been to a lot of museums and collecting a lot of old prints and things like that. You can see behind me. These are Peter Howson. That one's Goya from his Disasters of War. These two are from Kath Olowitz. Is it Turner?
Wow.
I've got,
so you
these
collect
are all stacked up.
So you collect also, because I know you're a really, like, you collect a lot, right, in the space, but you're very fond of collecting physical pieces as well.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Like, no, which isn't like very, I would say, you know, in the traditional art world, usually artists, they don't collect as much as they do in the NFT space. So what's your perspective on this?
Let me show you. I have, this is fun because I have some physicals from people in space too that I love. I have this David Hockney by Francine Cree, and also a portrait of Hockney by Tanya Revelis.
These are amazing.
I have these because, you know, I played Hockney on HBO, and so they made me these portraits.
And that was recent, right? That you played the role. That was
recent. Yes, that came out about 6 months ago.
Where we can say in HBO, or are there other channels, or?
HBO, and it's moving to Stars.
Okay, I have to check if I can get to that in Europe. Of course, like, I'll find a way with the internet these days. I'll crack a way to find it. But awesome. And You also have a super rare coming up, right?
Yes. So I do
Your
have that coming up.
Genesis.
My Genesis. And that, you know what I'm finding a lot of fun with this Genesis is having taken 2 years to do it, right?
Oh, wow.
Because I hadn't applied for 2 years because I was like, okay, there's so many other things I want to do first before I do that. But now, having taken that time, there's so much that's going into it and so much I can play with in terms of like what's happened and the pieces that I've developed and what are the storylines in those pieces. I don't want to give too much away, but I'm having a lot of fun playing with that.
So we'll keep it. We'll keep it secret for now, or we won't spoil it. But we're looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, my heart's beating a little bit thinking about it because it's coming up soon. But
it's on the February 23rd. Today's February 16th. So yeah, it's right around the corner.
Yeah. Some late nights coming up for sure.
That's not going to be a problem for you. So late nights is not your problem.
No.
Awesome. All right. Well, any other curiosities that you'd like to share before we close up on this podcast, on your Valuart Solos? Anything you want spectators to know, like any more details, curiosities?
Well, I'm proud to present this exhibition of my collaborations with so many artists that I love in the space and that I love working with and I love creating with. And it's just such a fine example of what we can do together when we come together and with like just the impetus to make something and doing the best that we do. And so it's an honor to showcase these pieces, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Laurence. It's always amazing working with you, and having you here on the podcast in this very first Valuart Solos together, the first of many to come. And best of luck, really, for your Valuart Solos, but also your upcoming Genesis. All right. And for those watching, remember to keep up and visit us here at the Valuart Gallery in Lugano Paradiso.